welcome to another episode of the Who Dat Jedi podcast. This is episode 157, and with me, I'm Aaron, by the way, and with me, as always, is Dave and Fredo. How are we doing, guys?
Good. How are you?
I'm not too bad. Pelicans got the 14th pick.
I know.
So,
Yeah.
So explain to me. I'm NBA dumb, apparently NBA draft dumb. But if this is a lottery,
Yes.
and there are 30 teams in the league, how is
Yes.
it that the Pelicans' chances of getting the number one pick was like 0.5%?
Because not every team in the league is in the lottery. It's just the 14 teams that did not make the playoffs. So NBA is a 30 league team.
All right.
16 teams make it, 14 don't.
All right. So we're
And
down to
then-
14. So if we're 1 in 14, okay.
Not one in
but
14, though.
That's the catch. The catch is the odds are weighed more towards the team with the worst records. It's like imagine if you had 1,000 ping pong balls, the top three teams have a bigger share of those ping pong balls than the teams that finished with the better record, which the Pelicans nearly haven't made the playing game did. So, if say San Antonio ended up with the number one pick, which had one of the worst records, and ends up, they have like 300 ping pong balls that they could pull out of the hopper. The Pelicans have 10. So the odds are not in your favor.
All right.
It's the idea behind it is to prevent tanking. The idea of, okay, the team's just gonna flat out, sit all the stars, just play the scrubs and lose game after game. But it doesn't really happen because particularly now, this year's lottery was heavily weighted because there's this young French kid called Victor Wembanyama that's been like the hottest thing that everybody's trying to get to since Zion. So everybody kind of knows, okay, if you're not doing great, you tank because you want to increase your odds of landing the superstar. Because especially in the NBA, more than the NFL or hockey or any other sport, if you have a superstar, you're going places. If you don't, we'll see you back here next year, kids.
So it's kind of like the argument of getting, rich people to pay more taxes. Yeah, makes sense. Anyway, there's your political stance for the night. Okay, so, all right. Well, thank you for explaining that to me, Fredo. And hopefully maybe anybody listening to this might be more, are probably smarter now. Thank you. Because I was trying to figure out how that math worked, and I didn't. So, yeah, I was NBA draft dumb. All right, well, what else? Tonight we're going to be talking about Star Wars Visions a little bit. We'll also be talking about Guardians of the Galaxy 3 quite a bit because I finally saw it on Saturday, and so all three of us have seen it. And then we have to ask ourselves, why was Heir to the Empire trending on Twitter today? This is Tuesday, the 16th, by the way. Why was Heir to the Empire trending? And what we think about that. But first, let's do some trivia, get us warmed up for some Star Wars stuff. Dave, you're going to be first. What planet does Anakin visit to find the remaining Separatist leaders? Good Lord.
Mustafar.
All right, someday, by the way, guys, we're going to have to actually play this Trivia Pursuit game and see how long, who wins, and how long the game lasts.
Yeah, set a timer just
Right.
to see how quickly we can.
3 weeks later.
No, it's usually like whoever wins the role is probably going to win the game because
Because they're gonna get every question right.
bing, 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 and then you're done. All right, Fredo, to you. Who's assigned to create a diversion at Theed's main entrance so Padme can enter the palace?
Captain Panaka? No, wait, no.
Who's assigned to create a diversion at Theed's main entrance so Padme can enter the palace?
See, I was trying to think. At first, I thought it was Captain Panaka, but he's alongside Padme. So now I'm trying to think it's some of the just the Naboo army, the Naboo regulars.
It is Captain Panaka.
McConkey.
You ahead. I talked myself out of the right answer, which you should
And
never do, kids.
never talk yourself out of it.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was weird. They like reconvened like 2 seconds after that, and then they were all in the hangar together, and then yeah,
They're rappelling up outside the castle together. I'm like,
yeah.
clearly it must have been it. So yeah, yep, took myself out of the answer.
All right. To me, another episode 1 question here. Who confides to Qui-Gon, "I am betting heavily on Sebulba"? Let me think about that one. I am betting heavily on Sebulba. That
You
would
can even,
be Watto in a
if you're
very
not hearing it in that accent,
in a very unfortunate. Yeah. All right. So let's just take a little. Do you think that was 1999,
nah.
right?
No.
And by the way, so the 90s are very interesting because I'm watching like
Some way of putting it.
watching episodes of Friends, by the way, and there's a lot of transphobic, homophobic jokes, not derogatory, but jokes made at the expense of, and things that would not fly today. And then we're not talking all that long ago. So, do you think episode 1 would have the accents that they did today? I mean, with Watto and with the Nemoidians, do you think,
And Jar Jar
and
and
Jar
see,
Jar, do you think that would have flown?
see, part of the reason I'm hesitating with this answer is because somebody like George Lucas and a tour like George Lucas who's just tunnel vision, I'm making the vision of my movie, would probably still want to fit those in, thinking, oh, I'm referencing this, or oh, this is what I'm calling for, or whatever, instead of realizing what he's doing.
But that was
With,
white. That was white guys in the '90s. They were in tunnel vision and just, I mean, so
but that's the difference. Is I think in 2023 there's at least somebody of color in the room. There might be somebody with a different gender or of a different identity, whatever, in that room that might have gone, George, FYI, you may want to do something different here. That's not working for X, Y reasons.
but
Because you're right, a lot of times it's not really meant to do, it's just blinders.
and I understand, but like the Nemoidians with this very unfortunate, mockery of an Asian accent. Doug Chang was his head,
Yeah, head
art
art.
art director
Yeah.
for the. Don't you think? So I'm just I see what you're
Question is,
saying.
He was surrounded by yes men. And I think like when we talk about the prequels being problematic in general, I think that's one of the things that you look at is like he didn't have a Kurtz, or
Maria Lucas,
Kasdan, yeah, or
Marshall Lucas.
Kasdan,
Yeah.
or Marcia in the room with him saying, "No, you can't. No, no, we're not doing that." It was the second time around. It was more, "Oh yes, you're a visionary. Yes, whatever you want, George." And I think it comes through in the films. And I think like this is one of the examples of that. So I'm kind of with you. I'd say it might unfortunately still have happened in today's day and age, and it would have been a bigger deal. People would have been like, "What the heck?"
But J.J. Abrams, his aliens didn't have that. So Ryan Johnson, same thing.
But
Ryan
remember,
Johnson had his aliens go, "Yep, there's the parker. They parked their thing on the beach. I told them no parking there." So the only people we offended were rednecks. But
but the catch is, both JJ and Ryan were employees of the Disney Corporation, whereas George was an independent filmmaker financing his own movie. So therefore, he can get away with a lot more when you're fronting the bill.
and I also want, but George Lucas is married to an African American woman now. So I mean, it may be, if he was making the prequels today, it may be different. I think your reasoning for why it was in 1999 is sound, but I think, I don't think any of that would
Fly
fly
today,
right
no.
now.
He
Mm, mm,
probably would have more voices. Like, let's say, for example, Doug told him at one point, like, I don't know about these accents, George, and he just sort of discounted that. He'd probably have more voices around him today that
Yeah.
would echo that viewpoint for him and be able to convince him. But
Anyway,
I
sorry.
mean, we it's all speculation. Who
Sorry,
knows?
but I think it's a neat thought experiment because it really
Yeah.
does. When you sit there, like I said, you watch stuff from the '90s, and it does it. Yeah, it's a while ago, but it's not that long ago, and it's like, wow, wow, that would not that would not fly.
mm.
So anyway,
No, no.
It's so much better than it could be, though. You were just talking about like Friends and like, some stuff from that era is just so bad and so
Mm,
rough to watch.
well, and
And
how I mean, again, I was a white guy in Nebraska, but now looking, it's like Friends is the whitest show ever made. It is just it's nothing but white people. I don't think. I mean, it's. I think when they introduced Ross's girlfriend Charlie, the paleontologist, I think that's the first time you got a person of color in that show. Anyway, this is not a Friends podcast, but yeah. So it's interesting. Now we got Lucy in the
mm.
background here. Lucy has made if this was a
Lucy.
video podcast, you'd be seeing Lucy the German Shepherd with Dave in the background. Is Lucy?
Hashtag Lucy dog.
So anyway, like I said, not a Friends podcast, but like I said, I thought it was just an interesting little thought experiment here. Well, let's get to some news. Some news, and then one I think that's probably right now firmly in the rumor category. But boy, it was getting some steam. So
Yeah.
I'll toss it over
So,
to Fredo.
let's start with the easiest one, the simplest one, more like little one is going to cause the least amount of confusion. From a certain point of view, Return of the Jedi is coming to you a week earlier. I think it's moved up from the September 5th to August 29th. So you'll get it a whole week ahead if you've read those books. We've talked to a few, Brittany Williams is one of the authors in the version they did for Empire, and they're fun books. So here comes the 40th anniversary version of Return of the Jedi. So that's nice.
Yeah.
Okay,
I,
moving right along.
Like
Mhm.
it's weird that they moved something up. I don't know. Did they say
I
as to
know.
why, or
No,
supply chain working good for us, or what?
yeah, because usually, I mean, it's not just a question of just having the hardcover books on bookshelves, not just in the big chain stores, but the independent bookstores, but it's also the digital versions, the ebooks, the whatever's. Everybody, Dave's having this experience right now with the new Legend of Zelda video game. Everybody went and ordered it at the same time, and all of a sudden, everybody's like, "Why did I order the physical copy when I could have just downloaded the e-copy?" But you know
There was
whenever you have a massive release, people are always trying to get it ASAP.
so when the this as an aside, but we're not gonna get into problematic Harry Potter. But when the last Harry Potter book came out, my band had a gig until like midnight, and so right after that gig, we all went to like Walmart and each bought our copy of the last Harry Potter book. So it
That's
was,
funny.
yeah, that was that's and then the next night we had a gig and our guitar player sat there reading the book on breaks. Anyway, cool. Well,
Uh,
we're getting in a week
I
early. Right on.
yeah, and then moving right along. So let's talk right quick Disney Plus, because earlier in the week or last week we had some bad news. Apparently, there's a rumor which was confirmed by Disney CFO Christine McCarthy that Disney's going to begin removing content from their streaming services. Now, she says it's being used to align with strategic changes in their approach to content creation. Now, what's being taken off Disney Plus? No idea. It makes me think back to the days when the Disney Vault was the big deal, where for the first time in a generation, we're bringing this timeless Disney classic, and but you only ever get it for a limited time on VHS. So buy Bambi or buy Dumbo on VHS right now because once we put it away, it's gone.
Well,
So
there's some other there's another element to this, and it's just let's get nerdy here. But I mean, all this stuff is stored on servers, and all these subscribers are pinging the same servers to get the same content, which I mean, and so that cost all that. I mean, that's the amount of energy that is used, and it costs money,
Mhm.
and so it's you know, so yeah, it's that's just the way that is, you know. And if they have too much stuff on the server, then does that slow down performance? Does it, you know, break down? Do they want to allocate so much money to Disney Plus to make sure that it is, you know, running properly, or do they just take away content so it works properly? Um, as long as they roll, like you said with the vault, as long as they just kind of every now and again roll it back out, like, hey kids, you know, Peter Pan is out for, you know, another problematic movie. Peter Pan is out for another
Yes.
another, you know, for the next you know, 4 months. So watch it while you can because it's going away. You know, then you know, we talked about this last week, but yeah, I think it all makes sense. And like I said, I think it's probably, they say strategic, and that probably means that we can't spend all the money to maintain these servers that everybody's, you know, pinging all the time. So yeah.
I think they have to be careful, um, because this mindset of the vault, um, I think is very backwards thinking.
Well,
And
we're
I
speculating on that one too, but anyway, yeah.
right, but like let's say they're gonna roll stuff out, you know, and um, if it's think about it from the perspective of where we were 30 years ago when they were doing this on the regular, versus now. Um, the people that grew up on Lady and the Tramp and Pinocchio and Fantasia, those people are dying off. Um, and so, like, is the demand even going to be there in such a way that it would almost be counterproductive to limit access to these films when people might be curious about them and now they're not unable to watch
Well,
them.
I totally, I see where you're going. I totally agree with you, and I'm going to take it from a different standpoint. I don't think they're going to touch stuff like Fantasia or Pinocchio, because let's just, I just hit him in the Disney Plus app, and I just tapped the Disney tile. Um, tell me which one of these strike your fancy. The Big Green, the Game Plan, uh, Crater, um, you know, I'm just looking at these live action, this live action stuff. I mean, Pirates of the Caribbean is probably going to stick around. You know, I guess what I'm saying is, if you go through the Disney Plus app and you start looking at kind of the random stuff that's in there, and it's like, how many people are really watching, you know, pick something, you know, keep your heavy
No,
hitters, you know, keep all the Mickey Mouse stuff, because the kids are going, when the kids are freaking out in the car, you can put on Disney Plus, and, you know, Mickey Mouse, you know, calms them down. But, you know, probably not the Big Green, whatever that is. You
but
know what I mean?
at
So,
the same time, I do think, I mean, there's kind of like a duality to it that I'm thinking about. You know, I'm thinking right now, Disney put in Disney Plus Peter Pan and Wendy. So you want Peter Pan to be available for families to go. You want to get excited for this? Go watch Peter Pan, the original Disney classic. Again, another problematic movie, as we said. But that idea of you want to watch the new stuff, you got to open up, maybe catch up on the old stuff first. It gets to be a lot harder to say, why should I care, say, about Tron Legacy a decade ago, when Tron was at best a cult classic. You know, it wasn't necessarily the biggest movie ever.
well,
Now, on the other hand, if you say take something like Peter Pan and put it in the vault, whatever, when you want to make another project with that property, and say make Peter Pan and Wendy, hey kids, we're bringing back Peter Pan, come watch it before you catch that new thing. So there's a way to drive interest to your new project, because that's part of Disney's gig is they're always going to be looking at old properties and saying, how can we refresh them? How can we get more eyeballs into them? How can we get people to buy into that? So there are pluses and minuses on it and everything. I do wonder because particularly on Dave's right in this regard, the we us old fogies grew up in a business model that said you wanted to see a movie, you had to either buy it or rent it. People today exist in a model that says, I want to see a movie. I just go on TV, fire up my or open up my tablet, my iPad, I go on the app and I click on it and it's right there. And it's usually when something's not there that people begin to freak out. Because it's like, wait a minute, why is this not available to me? I'm paying you X amount of dollars for it. So
I I
that
run
different
into
model.
that. I run into that all the time.
Mhm.
And like the other day, okay, so like I have these comic book movie rankings, right? We've talked about this on the show, and we may mention that with Guardians 3 here. But
Spoiler alert.
spoiler alert. Um, but so like I'll be like, I need to go watch Barbed Wire or some old comic book movie from 30 years ago. So it's like, okay, uh
With
I'll
Pamela
Google
Anderson.
it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's one of the
Is there
ones. I'll
another
do
one?
it. Yeah. Um, I don't think so. Um, so
Be careful what you're googling there, Fredo. Pam
yeah, be
Anderson
careful.
movie.
Yeah, you might get something else. Um, but like that's a random example. I'm like, okay, I want to search for this movie. I Google this silly thing, and I'm like, okay, it says it's on this service. Okay. So then I go to the service and it's not there. Or it's, like you got to pay us $12 for this movie. I'm not paying you $12 to watch Barbed Wire. I'm just not. Um, and so like it begins to break down eventually, this current system that we're under. And again, it becomes worse when you're telling me that I don't need physical media anymore, and now you're taking away potentially the movies that I might have bought for my kids, for myself, the superhero movies, Star Wars movies, Disney stuff. You're saying, oh, we're just going to take it away from you. So you can't just watch it whenever you want to watch it. It's like, well, what was the logic in that? It's like, well, what if I feel like watching this thing? Then what? Oh, then you can pay us the, 17.99 to own it forever. It's like, I don't, now you're double dipping, and now I'm angry. So I don't know.
Yeah.
That's my get off my lawn. I took your get off my lawn segment
No,
this
that's
week.
fine. That's fine.
Yeah.
I agree with you. It is kind of it's like getting, you know, you're paying a ticket to get in the door, and then all the rides cost money, and it's
Mhm.
kind of like, no, I paid, my ticket price, and I should be able to ride everything, I want. And Disney's kind of doing that now. Yeah,
Try to have it both ways.
you can stand in line for Space Mountain for 2.5 hours if you want to, or you can buy the Lightning Lane, you know. And they do it is one of those things. It's like, you know, when we went to Disney, it was like for Rise of the Resistance, like, yeah, my time is worth that, $10 or whatever. You know, it's, you know, it is it, but so yeah, they get you on this a la carte stuff. So yeah, I don't know. Um, but
It's it's annoying, and a lot of people are talking about it right now, and they're annoyed by
yeah,
this.
Well,
Um,
particularly given the Writers Guild of America strike, this is one of those things that's is a bone of contention for them. It's the fact that they don't get paid anywhere near the same amount. And if you're supposed to be paid residuals for a project you worked on for, say, Disney Plus, and Disney makes the corporate decision to take that project and shelve it, well, that means that's a residual source of income that's not coming to you anymore
but
because it's no longer available.
Dave, to
So
your point,
mhm.
everything you said made 100% sense. So this is kind of devil's advocate, kind of getting back to that. Okay, so I have limited server space as a company, and it's like, I've got, everybody in the world, everybody in the world coming to these sets of movies, and there's one person who wants to see Barbed Wire, and something's got to go. You know what I mean? It's, so it's, I don't, yeah, I don't know how it is very, very interesting. It's like, does the price of Netflix or the price of Disney Plus grant you ownership? Is it a timeshare for everything that Disney owns? You know what I mean? I don't know the answer to that. I don't know the
Yeah.
answer. Or are you just paying for the privilege to come into Disney's home and watching whatever's on their TV? You know?
Well, there's also the insidious part, business side of it that Fredo just touched on, which is like, oh, we're going to use this as a negotiating tactic, or you want your residuals? Oopsie, it's not available anymore. I guess no residuals for you.
Yeah.
These are the sorts of things that are in play, and this is what's going on with the HBO Warner Brothers stuff. And a lot of shows got taken down for
Uh-huh.
just reason they didn't want to pay people, and it was just like that's why you're taking it down, and you don't want to pay.
Yeah.
People want to watch this. Your customer wants it, but you're going to take it down because you don't want to pay. Okay, all right, that's where we're at.
You know what I'm going to do right now after we're done recording this? I'm going to go on Amazon. I'm going to buy you the DVD of Barbed Wire.
Oh God, don't do that. No, don't do that.
Let's see. Hold on. Actually, barbed wire just brings out a whole lot of the fencing, not the
even
cutters.
even if I could get it on
Oh
VHS, that
wow!
would be better.
You can get it on Blu-ray for the low price of $8.99.
Right
See, this
on.
is what I'm saying. $9.
And by the way, it's actually cheaper to get the Blu-ray. The DVD is
Uh-huh.
You can
15 to
watch it for the rest of
$29.
your life. Okay. Um,
Anyway, okay, so we talked about the stuff that's coming off Disney Plus. Let's talk about stuff that's getting on Disney Plus. Because the Disney upfronts, for those who don't know, upfronts is when you have the people who are running the networks and the streaming services, and they announce their slate of stuff coming because they're trying to get advertisers and
this is like
kind of
in the summertime when they would have the Saturday morning
mm,
cartoon preview for the fall.
mm,
That was the
basically.
that
Oh
was
yeah.
the best Friday or Saturday night, whatever that was, ever. When you got all the previews of all the cartoons that were coming. Oh man, there's
That
nothing.
was.
So here,
There's nothing
yeah.
better. Sorry, go ahead,
So
Fredo.
here, no, no. So here's the Disney Plus's release schedule for this year, for 2023. Starts June 21st, Secret Invasion. It'll run from June 21st through July 26th. Not confirmed yet, but pretty much secure that Ahsoka will follow that August 2nd through September 20. Remember, getting 8 episodes, 60 minutes each. After Ahsoka, we get Loki season 2, October 6th through November 10th. After that, you get Echo, which is going to be a Marvel property. Remember the character of Echo from uh,
Ant-Man and the Wasp,
uh,
right?
yeah,
No,
exactly. No,
Hawkeye.
no,
Oh,
Hawkeye,
Hawkeye.
Hawkeye.
Hawkeye, that's right.
Yeah.
Yep.
So she's getting a single solo shot release, kind of like the Werewolf by Night. Echo's going to be November 29th. So she's coming Easter. I mean, sorry, Thanksgiving
I was
weekend
thinking Ghost, and she's going to be in, was it
in
Ghost?
the Thunderbolts. Yeah,
She's
Ghost
going
is
to be in
going to be in the
Thunderbolt. Yeah.
Thunderbolts. Yep. The next one's going to be Pixar's first animated TV show, which is called Win or Lose. It's kind of have this ragtag baseball team kind of thing. So should be adorable. That's coming sometime in early December, not yet confirmed. And then 2023 is going to end on December 27th with Skeleton Crew. So
Ooh.
Skeleton. So if you're looking for Skeleton Crew to see Jude Law, you'll spend Christmas with Jude Law in a galaxy far, far
This is
away.
going to be a good. This is going to be a good summer and fall, guys.
Mm-hmm.
Some good stuff.
Every month you're getting something, which is, again, to your point, Aaron, we were making earlier, it's kind of hard to say, hey, you can't believe you're taking barbed wire away from me when Disney doesn't know barbed wire, but you can't take this stuff away from me because they're also in the business of generating new content all the time, and they know that that's what drives their big revenue stream, people signing up and people staying on. It's easier if you say, well, you enjoy Secret Invasion, here comes Ahsoka. You enjoy Ahsoka, don't go away, here comes Loki. Like that's how you keep your audience dropping that 10.99, 12.99, 14.99 every month.
All right, now it's time
So,
for the rumor of the day.
so the rumor of the day was kind of simple. I mean, there was a tweet that kind of went out today.
Well,
I'm trying to find
several,
out who it was. That
yeah, several people were tweeting this. It was trending
Right. It
on
was trending. It was
Twitter.
It was very much renting. So basically, the long and short of it is that we know what the title for Dave Filoni's Mandoverse movie is going to be, and the title is da, 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 Heir to the Empire.
Now,
Now,
again, kids, this is just rumor. It hasn't been confirmed, right? We haven't.
yeah,
We
yeah,
haven't.
grain of salt time.
So,
Now, go
so
ahead, go
now,
for it.
now I just want. I'm going to ask you guys this: um, if this is true, is Dave Filoni really that stupid? Because here's the thing: is if there's anything that is like kind of that is cherished within Star Wars fandom of our age and probably younger, um, from literature, from books, would be Timothy Zahn's Heir to the Empire, uh,
Trilogy.
The Thrawn trilogy. And so, if you are not going to do a true adaptation of that storyline, why the heck would you call it Heir to the Empire? They referenced, they used the words in, in the Ahsoka trailer, right? Um, but why, I'm really hoping this isn't true because it's just going, but then there's also part of me that is hoping that it's true because I want to see people pee their pants all over social media over this. But it just seems like this is when I would highly recommend not calling it Heir to the Empire, because unless you're going to have an adaptation of that book, the only thing that seems like we've got that's similar is Thrawn.
What if, okay, so like, what if I threw just a random question into this? Like, um, what if he throws in Mara Jade?
That'll be huge.
I mean, just like, like we're gonna call it this thing and get people kind of up in arms. Like, what do you think you really deserve this title? And then throw in another beloved character that people have been clamoring for decades now.
Well, I mean, but I want to go back to my point here is that it's like take somebody like a very popular novel and then make a movie that's seems like it's based on that novel, and then it's nothing like that novel except for it has. Well, okay, so let's take The Great Gatsby. Let's pretend that when they did the Great Gatsby movie, not too long ago, that it was nothing like the book. The only thing that it had similar in it is that it had Gatsby in it. You know what I mean? It's I just think that would be, man. I
I
mean,
mean, it does
they
it
got.
does happen because I'm just thinking World War Z in the back of my head. That movie has nothing to do with the book beyond just being titled the same thing and having zombies in it. But you're right. I mean, it would. The difficulty here is the title. The reason why everybody's freaking out on social media about it is because the title carries weight with multiple generations of Star Wars fans, not just us who I mean, I'm trying to remember. These books came out in 1991, 1992. They came out right at they're the birth of the expanded universe. They and the Dark Horse comic books line were like hit like two punches that just birthed the entire legend, what we call now legends. So everything from Coruscant to
Yeah,
Thrawn to a lot of the path that uh, J.J. Abrams and Ryan Johnson were mining for the sequel trilogy, it's kind of birthed out of this. So there's a lot of weight to it. And if you're not going to do that storyline, it's going to feel kind of tough to kind of equate it. At the same time, though, you know it's not going to be the exact storyline because there's characters that we know are coming in this movie that do not exist in these books.
well, and
The Mandalorian and everything. Yeah,
here's the
it's not going
thing.
to be the same.
People,
Mm-hmm.
EU fans are already ticked off because when Lucasfilm was acquired by Disney, they just scrapped all of the EU stuff and it's not canon anymore. So they're all still mad about that. And then I would think it'd be highly disrespectful, even though Timothy Zahn is getting money to write more Thrawn books and stuff like that. But I think it'd be highly disrespectful. It'd be like going to the Eagles and saying, You know what? Man, that title, Hotel California, that's a great title, but your song sucks. So we're going to write our own song and call it Hotel California. I mean, that's kind of what it seems like. It's like, you know, we know George Lucas didn't like Mara Jade.
Mm-hmm.
We know, it's got a character in there that I still don't know how to pronounce his dang last name, the clone Jedi. I mean,
Jorus Sabauth.
with a C and apostrophe right before,
Yeah.
but yeah. So I mean, unless they're gonna do that, I mean, so I don't know. I just think that my gut is saying that I think this stuff that was on Twitter today. I think this is fun for us to talk about,
Mhm.
but
Yeah.
I think it's if I was a betting man, I would probably not put money on it being called Heir to the Empire, because even if Dave Filoni would consider it as an homage, I think it would probably just make their fandom go berserk.
I find it somewhat plausible just because they're already borrowing Thrawn and they're already leaning into him as being the selling point. Um, like that's the idea, that's the concept that they're building around, and he's been well realized on television to this point in animation, um, but he has his roots in the same place, and this is where he came from. And um, I think EU fan we need to get some EU fans back on and ask them about it because
But do
like
you remember? Do you
Michelle.
remember? Do you remember? Do you remember when the sequel trilogy was announced? The people
uh-huh
saying it is already written for you. It is written by Timothy
yeah.
Zahn. It is the Heir to the Empire and that trilogy. It is, and they're like, why didn't you just do that? And so now, if you make a little, Disney Plus movie, and call it Heir to the Empire, I just think it's going to be there. I don't think they're going to go, oh yay, they called it Heir to the
Well,
Empire,
they
and I'm
already did it.
so happy. You
They
know,
already did it. Is my point. They already did exactly what you just described, and they've already borrowed Thrawn and thrown him into Rebels, and he's going to be in Ahsoka, I'm guessing, if only a cameo. Um, and then like at that point, like why hold back? Like, oh, is anything sacred? No. I mean, like the argument here isn't are you going to win over EU fans? The argument is would they do this? And yeah, they might, and like you said, like
oh,
EU fans could be pretty pissed
I think
about
it
it.
is plausible. I
Yeah.
absolutely think it is plausible. I don't think it is a very good decision if they're going to do that, because I think it will. I mean, it will split. I think it would be like the. Um, I think it would just be the bridge too far. Um,
I think it'll be carrying like just kind of it'd be carrying a lot of expectations that doesn't need to carry because we're gonna meet Thrawn in Ahsoka, so that reveal has kind of already happened.
well, and let's
If you're if you're just trying to bring in Mara Jade and Shorus Sabath or whatever, yeah, the fans will go crazy and they'll enjoy it. And the little lizards that create force bubbles that negate the force, yeah, you can do that, but I don't necessarily know that that's going to be the same as, oh, we're doing an adaptation of Heir to the Empire, because it's not. Again, it can't be. Din Djarin doesn't exist in Timothy Zahn's books. Ahsoka does not exist in Timothy Zahn's books because those characters didn't exist at the point. He created a whole new different slate of characters, and while it would be cool to bring someone like Talon Card or Mara Jade, I don't know what we gained there by just simply name checking a random character to appear there without all the emotional weight and heft that would come in. Now,
My
to
my
Dave's,
argument, yeah,
mm-hmm,
my argument is if they're a big part of it, right?
mm-hmm,
If
mm-hmm.
they're a big part of it, like somebody like Mara Jade would just like create a
Well,
tidal wave of excitement and joy for people.
because the other thing is, where that story is going to end. It ends with Ben Solo torching down that temple,
But
and there's no Mara Jade after. So
you guys are already going down the path of the dark side because you're going, yeah, if it's heir to the Empire, but if they've got Mara Jade and if they've got these people and they got these things, it's like that's what people are. It's remember what happened with Solo as well. It's like people weren't paying attention of what was
mhm.
coming, and so now you got some people who are like, they're making an heir to the Empire movie, and they go to this movie and it's ain't heir to the Empire, and suddenly the internet goes
Let him.
nuts. I'm just saying, it is,
Mhm.
yes, it is plausible. I think would be a bad decision if I was in the room with the folks, that if they were saying, let's call it heir to the Empire, I was like, really, do you want to do that? Do you really want to do that?
You might
Yeah.
be fully right. Like any expectation that it's anything more than just a title, you're setting yourself up for disappointment. You are. What I'm saying is you're saying Dave Filoni's an idiot, and I'm saying he's not an idiot if this is true. He's not an idiot if they're going into the actual novels and
Well,
paying proper homage.
and
So
we're and also here's the other part of it, guys. It's not going to be called Heir to the Empire because that's not how they name Star Wars Disney Plus shows. It's going to be called Thrawn. It's going to be called Thrawn because you have Ahsoka, you have Obi-Wan Kenobi, you have the Mandalorian, you have Lando, you have, name it,
Andor.
Andor. It's going to be called Thrawn. They're not going to call it any. It's not going to be 3 syllables, much less 3 words. So
Well, you do have the Book of Boba Fett, so they could call it what, the Art Gallery of Thrawn.
The Art Gallery of Thrawn. There we go. We solved it.
how about Thrawn on the throne? Heir to the Empire, Thrawn on the throne. Anyway, okay. Well,
Thrawn framed.
well, stay tuned here, kids. We'll see what happens. And we'll see. Watch the internet burn down when they do announce that it's going to be called that. But anyway, it was fun to talk about, though. Oh, it was good.
Exactly. So that's it for news this week. So
All right. Do we want to talk Visions first or Guardians 3?
which one would you rather get overdone with first?
Well, let's stick with the Star Wars stuff and let's just talk Visions real quick.
Mhm.
So, Vision season 2, um, right away, it is, each episode is vastly different animation styles, which was interesting. Um, and I I'd like to hear from you guys first because I feel like I'm in. It's not a negative headspace, but it's just kind of a meh headspace on this and just in Visions in general. Now maybe I'll just spout out what I have to say. I think it's great storytelling. I mean, the stories are neat. They're well done. The art is incredible. Um, but I just don't get fired up about it. It's kind of like I told you guys in our private chat. I said it's kind of like the EU novels to me. Yes, I was a huge Star Wars fan, but it was hot or cold. It was like sometimes I found a novel that I latched onto, others I started and couldn't finish because I just it wasn't grabbing me. And one of the things I kept asking myself, and Brittany and I were having a debate about this as we were watching an episode. I said, okay, this is a great story, but what is this doing to propel the overall Star Wars story? What is this adding to it? Because here are these characters that, yeah, they're neat characters. I'm probably never going to see them again. So I don't know what this story, what domino it plays in the grander arc. And she said, well, there's characters in the sequel trilogy like Janna that we didn't get much of. I said, yeah, but still she had an influence on Finn, and and had an influence on some of that story. So that's kind of what and I don't want to make this an EU uh an EU discussion, but that's my whole thing. It's like, these are neat and they're beautiful, and I don't dissuade anybody from watching them, But my question is, why are they there? And I don't mean that in a mean way. It's just
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out, because every other thing, whether it's part of the Skywalker, even if it's not part of the Skywalker saga, like the Mandalorian stuff is at least tangential to it. It touches it. It touches that overall Star Wars arc. And these, it's like, even, it's like, okay, cool lightsabers, but that's that's not Darth Vader. It kind of looks like Darth Vader, but it's not Darth Vader. Okay, cool, TIE fighters. So are we in, it's just weird. It's just kind of, it's just weird to me.
Adjacent. Star Wars adjacent.
Or
Um,
it's like the multiverse,
mhm.
you know. So I guess that's where I'm at with it. It's kind of like, what is it? I understand that the people who wrote it have a story to tell, and it's a great story, but it's a story that did not need to be in with the Star Wars set pieces.
So I look at it the same way I look at a lot of the EU material, and in particular, I think about the Clone Wars micro series. Not necessarily canon, not necessarily, real or part of the overarching story, but just a really sort of fun spin. And you talked about the unreliable narrator aspect to like from a certain point of view, those novels, and just getting a different take on things, not necessarily the correct take, just a different one.
Sure.
And I think like that's like the most that makes this some of the most important Star Wars that we have gotten and will continue to get, which is that alternate viewpoint. And um
And I will
it's
say, while you took a pause there, I will say that this is the first time that Star Wars has been original in the last couple decades. As much as I love the prequel trilogy and the sequel trilogy, they're not original. So these
I
are
mean
actually
I'd throw
original stories.
I'd throw Andor in there. There's a few things that I'd put in there with this, but yeah, like as far as like the visual style, and the storytelling perspective of the creative force behind it, like absolutely original. And it's because you're inviting people to play in this universe who typically don't get to play in this universe. Um, like season one was like strictly Japanese studios. Season two is like studios from all over the world. Um, I think like if there's a lot to recommend here, if I'm going to be hypercritical about any of it, it'd be that like everybody sort of gravitated towards the Force, and like they couldn't resist, right? Like I want my story to be important. This is my one shot. I got to tell this story. And so like everybody sort of just like, okay, we're going to go into the dark side versus the light side, and we're going to get into Force things and Jedi and Sith. And it's like not every story has to be that. And so like if I had any sort of disappointment, it would be there. But so far as like this idea of everything needing to connect, I don't think that has to be the case. Um, and I almost I almost prefer this sort of storytelling when you're not beholden to that bigger story. You're not as limited, and you're not forced to do things a certain way and connect with so and so, and during this time period this has to be going on. And it's just like just tell a story. Tell us an interesting story that people might enjoy on its own merits. And
I will say
to your
that,
point, they do that for the most part.
my, the where I, and I, please, I'm not being a gatekeeper. I'm not being anything like that. But I mean, we have been trained since 1977 or 1980 when they started episode 4, episode 5, episode 6, episode 1, episode 2, episode 3, and this is canon, that's not canon. Whether we can agree or disagree about all that, but they've trained us to everything has connected, and now we have something that doesn't. And again, I'm not. So I come back to, I wonder. I wonder why. Was it to feature the um, animation styles? Was it is so is that are these more about anime in in and of itself rather than Star Wars? Is it equal amounts of both? I don't. I guess I don't know if we've ever got an answer as to why they was it to appeal to get more people into Disney Plus? I don't know. Fredo wants to say something.
No, I was going to say, I think in some way, part of the ability. I mean, I think the idea behind it, there's always been a kind of marriage between Star Wars and manga slash anime. I mean, you don't have to go really far. Anime in all its forms, because they both draw from the same well springs of influence. I mean, Star Wars is heavily influenced by Japanese culture and by its art and its filmmaking, from Akira Kurosawa through all the way to modern movies. So the idea that they would go back and try to bring that even closer together by making season one of Visions always made sense. And the opportunity to do so was there. It was great. Everybody enjoyed it. I think with season two, they're trying to expand that idea by not limiting themselves to just exclusively Japanese anime studios by making it, hey, Aardman, who you're famous for Wallace and Gromit and Chicken Run. You make a Star Wars movie. This studio from South America, you make a Star Wars story. I do agree with Dave. Kind of the problem that you do find is that everybody naturally wants to have the Jedi v Sith or the good guy versus bad guy lightsaber dueling, and you're like, but you can tell other stories. That's the beauty that this medium gives you. You're not tethered to this much latch on, this must connect with season one of Ahsoka or must connect with season three of The Mandalorian. No, you can tell a story anywhere along the breadth of the saga. You can tell as big a story or small a story as you want to tell. And that gives you a little bit of freedom and opportunity. And whenever that's presented, you don't know what you're going to get. Sometimes you get great short stories. It's almost like like that we're talking about from a certain point of view book. You're getting a little vignette, a little
That
a
was
little
just
morsel of something.
that was
But
just going to
that's
be
it.
my that was
That's
just going to be my point is that
mm,
and I agree with you that I think it's great that
mhm,
we get these different stories, but what I like about the certain point of view books is that it puts me automatically
mm,
in a place that you know is familiar. But then we're going to tell a totally different story about this character that was sitting at the bar in Mos Eisley, that you if you blink you miss, that you didn't even know their name. We're going to tell that story, but I know so and so that story then fits in with the overall Star Wars story. I don't know, and a lot of this is half of me being truthful and half of me being devil's advocate here. Um, but I really did wonder, what, like I said, what the why. Um, but
The why is more real world. It's let's be inclusive, let's invite different voices here, tell different kinds of stories, and in the process, maybe identify some talent that we can mine later on for storytelling purposes. And like kind of a tryout or an internship, if you will. It's a way of again cultivating talent, and I fully agree with it from like a business perspective. They should totally be doing this. They should be doing more of this. They should be inviting more guest directors onto their television shows, um, and just identifying these younger talents that may not have gotten a shot otherwise, um, to play in this universe. And so, like, 100% agree with it in concept and scope. Um, I just think like you give people the license to kind of do whatever they want, and they all sort of gravitate towards the same idea. And he's like, okay, so how creative are we actually being here? Um, and like again, that would be my only real critique.
makes you wonder what kind of parameters were put on them.
Well,
mm, yeah.
I'm sure they were told not to touch any of the existing characters and shows that they're currently working on. Like, stay away from these people. These are no go zones. Um, But beyond that, I don't know. Maybe they were told, let's play with the Force. That's what we want to see. I don't know.
I guess you know. I think these would actually. It's kind of like the Pixar shorts that they put in front of the Pixar movies. It's
Yeah.
like imagine if before your new Star Wars movie, you had a 15-minute you know short like this. You know, um,
I love it.
that'd be kind of an
Yeah.
interest. I mean, so it just yeah, it just like I said, I think they're beautiful. They're good stories. Um, it's nothing that I'm gonna run out and like rewatch season two or season one. It's like you okay. I read that book, putting it on the shelf. Probably not gonna reread it again. Um, but that doesn't make it bad. You know.
And I think that's part of the dynamic is it doesn't necessarily need to be the end all be all. That's part of the what's one of the things we're discussing in our chat. Just simply there's different. One of the beauties that you have with a property like Star Wars is you're going to have the ability to tell multiple stories across multiple media. So you can, there's some people who will only ever watch the movies, care nothing for the TV shows. There's some people who care watch the movies, TV shows, will never read a book. So when the Acolyte comes next year, they'll be catching up on everything that's the High Republic because they've
Yeah,
never read a High Republic book. You know, there's the video games, which again, people will never play the video games. And so you mentioned Cal Kestis, they have no idea what I'm talking about. That's part of the
that was
beauty is that you can adapt it to whichever way you want to consume it.
well. It's the beauty, and it's the also the frustration because we were talking
Mhm.
about this today. We're getting to the point where there's too much that I told you guys in the chat. It's like the only way that I'm going to be able to consume it all is if I
Mhm.
quit my job and run a YouTube channel, where I review everything,
Mhm.
and so I become, I've read a couple Dr. Afra comics,
Mhm.
you know, I watch things, so I know who that character is, and I don't know the entire story, but if she was to come into, you know, a series or a movie or something, I wouldn't be totally thrown off.
Mhm.
Cal Kestis is different because now we got two, games with him. With the visions, my point is that, name a character from one of these episodes.
Right.
It's that's the thing is that it's so I'm just I don't
And I
know.
guess the other question that I was going to bring up is there two is Star Wars kind of cannibalizing itself because you have Visions and you have Tales of the Jedi and both animated short length format stories, one giving you whole new characters, different art styles, and one giving you characters that you know and love in an art style people are comfortable with. So is it a way? Is this a dynamic where maybe by accident Disney created two competing shows that should be competing? Because if you give the people, okay, go watch the 8 episodes or 9 episodes from different studios that will never connect, or well, hey, come watch this story about Ahsoka and this story about Kantuku that looks like the shows that you love, people are going to gravitate to that a lot easier.
And why not marry the two? Why not take the Tale of Jedi's stories
Mm-hmm.
and feature the animation styles? You know
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Right.
that I mean so anyway. But yeah, I mean, like I said, it was fine. But
Mm-hmm.
Some stories were affecting, and I don't want to like kind of undersell that. I know that like, oh, I'm not really attached to some of these characters and etc. But there was one, um, there was one in particular, the one about the slaves in the pit. Um, that was like that was some dark stuff. And heady stuff. It really made me think. And so like there's a lot there that's worthwhile, I think. And like you said, like maybe some of it you won't go back to, but I think I think it's definitely worth a watch for most people.
Yeah, just thinking about the ones that kind of, I mean, I enjoyed the one again, the one with Wedge because that's Aardman style. And again, I am a sucker for Wallace and Gromit, Chicken Run. I love them. They're, so just the idea of having Wedge and Tilly's story about that was cool. And then there was the one about the dancers, the one that they're
Yeah,
running
yeah.
this
World
spy
War
network.
Two.
Yeah, it's spy network at this dance club that all the stormtroopers connect, and somehow, some way, the head spy discovers that her son's alive and it's an imperial. So
Not
I love that.
Nazi occupied France. Very, very overt.
Yeah, so I love it when Star Wars gets the opportunity to take something that's real life and put it into its own universe in its own twisted way, so that you're able to see it from a different point of view. To kind of go back to that idea, but I find that those are the stories that connect more with me because they're not the grand story. We know what the grand story is. They're about the people who live within this galaxy and have to deal with making the decision to be a hero or to run away, to be noble, uh, choose the quick and easy path that blocks.
Well, because Dave's siren just went off, we still need to talk about Guardians. So,
Mhm.
um, table this conversation. We'll go on to Guardians 3. And I'm going to let Dave kick this one off because you do have a comic book rating.
Mm,
And
yeah.
I want you to start off by have you put this into your overall
No,
list?
no, not yet. I really had to sort of sit with this one.
I
It's
will say this. I said I was going to let you
yeah.
start, but I have to do say the fact that Rocket's first word was hurts. Good lord. I mean about a sobbing mess in the back
Hmm.
of the theater. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, no, there were a lot of scenes like that. It was a difficult watch. Our kids were with us. We took all warnings into consideration and decided, well, we're gonna go with this. And there were certain scenes that just were very difficult. And I don't necessarily want to get into too many spoilers, but some of this stuff involved animal abuse.
Oh,
And I
yeah.
think,
Animal testing. Britt said if there's this is the best advertisement for anti-animal testing
yeah,
ever.
I mean, like you could definitely say that. And I think like within the context of the story, it was very successful in terms of like trying to convey um who Rocket is, where he comes from, and moreover like how evil the antagonist is in this particular story. You hate his guts.
Yeah, big time.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
and
so,
that's good storytelling to me. And I like again, like you got all the Guardian stuff that you want. You know, we can go over all of that, but then by the end of the story, all of these characters have either grown or moved into a different phase of their lives, and I really appreciated
And
that too.
to that point, I want to bring up the thing about Gamora in this because it's it's 2014 Gamora. It's not the one that Peter was in love with, and part of me was frustrated because it was like they kept saying, "I know you don't remember." It's like she's not. It's not that she doesn't remember. It's like you guys don't. That was just from the back of the theater. I was just getting frustrated with that, but I like how the new Gamora, you saw growth and an arc of her
Hmm.
own within this movie. They could have very easily just, made something magically happen that she remembered, and was back in love with Peter. You could have just kept her just a mean, you know, just a just a grumpy old person the whole time. Um, but they gave her room to grow. And seeing how the rest of the Guardians, there's one I remember like they're all hugging each other, and she was on the outside and then walks away. You know, she recognized that she wasn't part of that family, but that's what she wanted. And like I said, not to get too spoilery, but she finds that with you know with her with the Ravagers. But um, so I thought that was really kind of cool how they handled Gamora in this, and it was refreshing too because it was like it was just a refreshing take on that.
Well, the element in the room is that the Gamora that everybody had seen in Guardians 1 and 2 had been sacrificed by Thanos.
by
So
the Russo
what?
brothers.
Yeah, yeah. But I don't know if by the Russo
From what I
brothers, but
understand, I don't think that was it Gunn. I don't think he had any
no, that
say
was
or didn't know that was going to happen. So
no, probably not because. But then again, that's part and parcel of when you make an Infinity War and Thanos is the big bad villain. Who's the only person he's going to be able to sacrifice to get that Soul Stone once he set those parameters. I love the way that they did it. I enjoyed the movie tremendous amount. Yeah, if you are somebody who's squeamish about animals getting treated poorly, this is a rough watch. And they don't shy away from it. They don't shy away from the cavalier, careless nature of the high evolutionary of what he's doing. Even when you get the reveals down the line of what he's been up to, what his plan is, I love the fact that Peter just checks him on his uh on his nonsense. Like, no, you don't want to make a world that's perfect. You just want to you hate yourself and you want the world to reflect all that. Um, I love the way that the characters that were around Rocket at the start. They were just again, they're adorable. You want to take them home, and yeah, I love that they keep coming back because Guardians, much like many of the other Marvel movies, hinges on the idea of family, of building a family. I know that Fast and the Furious 10's coming out, and that's also all about family, but different family here. So that element that yes, they lost a family member in Gamora. The Gamora they have, it's not the same person. Yeah, she may sound the same and talk the same, but she definitely is not the same person. And so that in order for that even though they're feeling not really connected, that they're not who they used to be, they're finding a way to be who they want to be. And I
so
love that. I think Gunn nailed it.
so Dave, I want to go to you on this one
Mhm.
because I think it was either Screen Crush or New Rock Stars, but they were actually. I know you haven't figured out where this movie fits in your
Mhm.
overall ranking, but what about the Marvel trilogies? And I think Fredo mentioned this. You have the
Yeah.
Mhm.
Thor trilogy, you have the Iron Man trilogy, you have the Captain American trilogy, and you have the Guardians trilogy. Um, how would you rate those trilogies? And I will say that actually, for me, first of all, Guardians of the Galaxy, the first one, at the time was one of my least favorite Marvel movies. And I will say I think this is my favorite Marvel trilogy because
It's
seeing how they ended it and tied it and how three tied into everything in two and one, um, it made for a satisfying story. But anyway, that's just me.
I also needed to ask you, did you like the holiday special?
I did, yeah.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
good.
I
Yeah.
really enjoyed that. Um, this is my favorite. Guardians of the Galaxy is my favorite Marvel movie, period. And so the second movie and the third movie have a high bar to reach. I don't think either of them quite have reached it. I think I can safely say that. But within, as you said, an overall story arc, this is the best trilogy to me, bar none. Captain America is a very high quality series. Those are three excellent movies. And then the third movie, the little Avengers E.
Well, and those three movies, yeah, they don't seem to connect.
they sort of do, but like it's
Yeah,
tenuous. The Bucky stuff is a constant through line. But like by the time you get to the end of the third movie, you forget where you started.
right.
Um, and you don't forget where you started when you get to the end of the Guardians. It's like, gosh,
And
you got tears rolling down your face because
this
it's just
didn't
like,
have the typical Marvel cameos. It was like
mm,
you didn't have Thor
No,
come in. You could have very well had Thor come in. You didn't have Thor come in. You didn't it was like I said, it was just them.
yeah. All the cameos were all James Gunn's buddies, like
Yeah.
Nathan Fillion, which is
oh yeah,
hilarious.
he was great. I
Mm.
loved Adam Warlock and how they realized
Oh,
him on screen. I mean, just like epically bad timing. Like no matter what, right? Like he always showed up at the exact worst possible time.
Show him we
And then
need
by the
business, and then he just totally
and then by the end of it,
disintegrates a
it's
dude.
still it's just like he's not they're not going to throw him out. He's a reject the same as all of them, and they're not going to say like to heck with you, you tried to kill us earlier. They're like, "All right, come on in. You're part of this crew now too." And I just thought that was so in keeping with their character. Um, and I'm like spoiling everything right now. So sorry, spoilers. Um, but like Adam Warlock is presented as like an antagonist, and by the end of it, he's part of the team. Which, if you read the comics, not so much of a spoiler. Um, but
Well,
still,
what's hilarious is, yeah, his character is completely different from the comic books. In the comic books, he's one of the most powerful characters for the Infinity War. He was the leader of the team facing Thanos, and here he is at best a himbo,
Well,
just somebody.
there was a theory that, I mean, getting back to the Gamora thing, because apparently in the comics, the gem in his forehead was like the soul gem.
Mhm.
So, and then of course in the MCU they kind of put that into Vision as the Soul Stone, but there was wonder if that soul gem
Mhm.
would be something that would then allow Gamora to come back as, and again, I'm glad that they didn't do that.
Yeah.
the gag is that he's half baked, right? Like
Right.
Mhm.
you
Yeah.
took him out of the pod too soon, or whatever, And so it's like, okay, and there's reasoning behind him
Mhm.
being the way that he is.
I was also
But
glad, and again, spoiler alert, everybody. We need to put this on the episode title. Um, everybody was going into this movie of who's going to make it and who's not, and the fact that everybody made it, and but we're going to go our own ways and this, that, and the other. Um, this is like um, this is like the end of the Mandalorian season 3, where it's like they don't have to do another Guardians.
mhm.
You
Mm.
know
And then
that the
and
bow is tight. The bow is wrapped around the present. We're all good. Everybody's in a good place. Don't need to do another one.
And I think that's a good way to leave. I mean, for behind the scenes, and for James Gunn is leaving Marvel. He's going to be the head honcho at
DC,
DC.
yeah.
He's going to make a Superman movie, try to somehow resurrect the mess that Warner Brothers has made of their comic book lineup. So this is a perfect neat bow for him to leave those characters. We already know that Dave Bautista is retiring from Drax. Uh, Guys like Vin Diesel and Bradley Cooper can come back any day they want because it's a couple of days in a sound recording booth and they can do Rocket and Groot. But the idea of we know that Star Lord will return at some point. But if they want to leave it off here,
It's
I think it's
interesting
the
that they
perfect
didn't
way to.
say Peter Quill though.
They said Star Lord. Well,
They
that's
said
the
the
name of his comic
original.
book.
They said the original Star Lord will return.
Or yeah. But
That's
I
that's
think
interesting. I think there is a
mm, mm,
distinction with a difference there. So
could be, but I also think it's a good way to do it. Just giving the emotional heft that it's hilarious. This is a trilogy that started as the one that everybody thought was going to sink Marvel because this is not even B characters. This is C and D
yeah.
characters teamed up together. Nobody knows anything about them. Being made by a guy best known for making schlocky B movie horror stuff. And all of a sudden it becomes a gigantic hit because it's funny and it's got heart. And this is why I agree with Dave that this is probably my favorite trilogy out of everything Marvel's done. Because unlike some of the other ones, there's not been a dip in quality. From one to two to three, they've touched on every aspect of the characters that they've had. They've taken them on a journey, and the way that they finish off is just perfect for each one of these characters. If we never see them ever again, we know they're fine, and that's really what you want when you get a story like this. That's why you don't mind the quote unquote happy ending where everybody survives because it's earned.
So a couple of things. First of all, again, Brittany mentioned this after when we were walking out of the theater. Nebula, I think, has
Mm-hmm.
had the greatest character arc through all of these movies, not just the Guardians
Mm-hmm.
movies, but Endgame. Um, that character was really well developed. The other thing I want to say, and I'll credit, this was New Rock Stars that pointed this out. It was at the very end when Groot says, "I love you guys." They said they think at that, and this, I don't know if you guys had thought
Mm-hmm.
of this or had read this or anything. So at that moment, it's like we as the audience are kind of in the other Guardians' heads, where we finally now understand what Groot is saying. It's not that Groot just finally started speaking English. It was that, hey, you all now understand what Groot's saying. You're part of our family as well. I thought that was kind of there's a lot of really neat things in this movie that were just really very well done, like that.
And the set pieces are fun. The action sequences, whether they're trying to break in or get on board a ship, like the whole shootout between with Peter and Groot against the High Evolutionaries people, how they get out of that. They find a way to amp up all the attention and all the action, but keep it in a way that's
The
never difficult to follow.
Nebula dealing with the door handle was the best, I think, probably 30 seconds of the movie, actually.
Mhm.
And Peter, open the effing
She's
door.
she is great though, from beginning to end. Her yeah, her arc is just fabulous. And I think like Peter finally getting out of that Arrested Development and just like I need to work on me and I need to like actually do that instead of just act like I might be doing that and act like a like the boy who got abducted. Like that was him. He got abducted at the beginning of the first movie. He didn't develop from that point forward, really, emotionally
So what
as a
criticisms
man until the end of this movie.
what
And then,
criticisms do you have of this? You're very high on the movie. Both of you are very
mm-hmm.
high, and I'm high
I
on the movie as
the
well. But
tone
just what
is.
criticisms do you have?
I think like again, he nailed the characters. He nailed everything. Seems true to what you would expect from them. He made them his own, and they're just treated with such love and care. And like that's all you can ask for. Like if I gotta sit here and critique it, it's like again the tone is darker and tougher to watch. You can't just put it on a Saturday afternoon
It's
like
kind
you
of more of
can
a
the other two
second act.
movies.
It's kind of a more of a second act. The second act is always darker and
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
It's a harder watch.
It is.
I know, repeat viewings it might become easier. But again, it's not a breezy popcorn Saturday afternoon kind of movie. I don't necessarily think that of that as being a critique necessarily. It just is what it is. It's a different movie. Um,
Yeah.
but
For me,
but it
go ahead.
works. But it works.
Yeah, for me, if there was going to be any criticism, maybe just be runtime. It is 2.5 hours, and
Yeah.
and don't get me wrong, I loved all of it. It's a lot of fun, but I do think maybe that with a little bit of rewrite and maybe a little bit of editing, it could have been 15, 20 minutes, which would have helped a lot with what you're saying regarding tone, Dave. I think we get the at some point you go like, yes, the High Evolutionary is probably one of the most evil characters we've met. We don't need to keep revisiting how evil he is because in some ways we know where this is going, so you don't need to hit us over the head with it.
Yeah.
Um, but so I think maybe the runtime would be my one big criticism because you trim about 15 minutes of this movie and it would have been perfect. It's still you lose nothing and it still would have been perfect. Although, maybe you needed that for just the slow-mo reveal of Adam Warlock as Crazy and News playing.
Yeah, you gotta hit that point home repeatedly
Mhm.
too. He's got to keep showing up and keep screwing things up for them. Uh but I'm kind of with you. Like that was the one thing I thought like that was a long movie. um I would not trade any of the Nathan Fillion stuff
Mm.
like for like I
I
could
got one. I got one of my own.
Yeah.
I would never I would never want that to go away, but that's the most disposable part of the movie. Um, yeah, I mean, I can't sit here and say like, "Whoa, I would have done it differently," because I don't think I would have done it differently necessarily.
So then,
It's long, but it's worth it.
okay. So you said you haven't worked it into your. This is what we'll end with
Mhm.
here. So we're coming to the end of our time here tonight, but you said you haven't figured out exactly where it ranks, but I'm guessing, is it fair to assume this is going to be in your top third?
Yeah. It will be. Because I'm like 150 movies deep, so you put it in the top
Oh,
50.
these are
Yeah,
comic book movies, not just Marvel movies. So yeah, that's right.
yeah. Um, so yeah, it's easily in the top third. Among Marvel movies, probably the same thing. I don't know yet. Um, but gosh, it's good.
What's at the top of your list on Marvel?
Like I said, Guardians 1.
Guardians 1.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And Winter Soldier is right up there too.
Well, right on. Well, everybody let us know what you think of Visions, by the way, and what you think of Guardians 3, if you've seen that. Um, and then we'll all wait and see if the movie is actually called Heir to the Empire. So we need to have a little thing of Aaron's predictions, and we can see where I got him right and where I got him wrong. But otherwise, until that, we will say who dat,
Who dat?
and everybody have a great week.
McConkey.